first thing I would like to say, if you allow me, is to discuss a little bit what is the connection of sleep paralysis with the out-of-body experience or with any sort of sensitivity or psi phenomena. Because when we try to find out what explanations exist in terms of sleep paralysis, we are going to find pretty much discussions on parasomnias. For those of you who are not familiar with the word, parasomnias is any type of abnormality or disturbance we would feel during our sleep. So, for example, if you have any type of image that come to your mind when you start to fall asleep or during your sleep, not talking about dreams, other type of image, so that would be called parasomnia. If you feel, for example, that you are floating above your body, that will be called parasomnia. If you feel there is somebody close to you or looking at you when you are about to fall asleep or relax, but you are still awake, that is also called parasomnia. So pretty much everything that we do not have a good explanation for in terms of our physiology or how our brain works, we just catalog that as parasomnia, meaning those type of abnormalities. So when we study about this, there's very little in terms of treatment and very little in terms of explanations, actually. Nonetheless, when we look for statistics of what has been done in terms of real, serious scientific studies to understand sleep paralysis today, we see that the statistics are very high. If we look, for example, in the Wikipedia, we are going to see their results saying that 8 to 50% of individuals experience sleep paralysis. And but in my studies, I have consulted many scientific articles from authors from all over the world. And what I found is that all of the results, they vary. So of course, I have accessed different studies than what has Wikipedia. But in my studies, I see that between 35 to 62% of population would have sleep paralysis. What it means when we say 35 to 62 means that some studies, they point that it's 35% of population, of the general population, who experience sleep paralysis. Some other studies, they will say 42, they will say 45, but this goes as high as 62. I consider 62 very high. So you imagine one study that would point that 62%, more than half, I think considerably more than half of the population would experience sleep paralysis. So what we see here is that depending on the area, and maybe also on the study, what sort of language was used to ask participants about their experiences, maybe that influenced a little bit the culture, the area, their previous knowledge, how the question was posed. But for example, this area that reveals 62% of individuals having experienced as sleep paralysis, it is Newfoundland. Newfoundland is an area in the very north of Canada, so almost facing Greenland. So those, there they have a sort of a legend, like a cultural story that passed to one another. There is some sort of creature or entity that during the night would haunt people. Maybe because of fear, or maybe because they have already information about that, many people end up saying they have sleep paralysis. Another area that also revealed that many people have this sort of experience is Japan. Very interesting. Japan is the only place that I know of. Of course, I do not know all of the places, all of the countries, but I know many. But from all of the different places that I have already lectured and discussed about out-of-body experiences and phenomena related to out-of-body experience, Japan was the one that was most informed about sleep paralysis. Pretty much, you can say the word that is kanashibari, but you can say the word to anyone in the streets and everybody will know what that means, and everybody knows that's sleep paralysis, and most people are afraid of it. The truth is that the percentage of those who experience sleep paralysis and who are afraid of the sleep paralysis is very high, and we are going to see in a moment why. So I was discussing at the beginning about the connection of the sleep paralysis with the out-of-body experience. But the connection is pretty interesting because it seems that some sort of slight separation of ourselves, what we want to call it, the self per se, the consciousness, I prefer saying, as our consciousness starts to separate, detach from the physical brain. Therefore, there are a number of perceptions that we will have that we don't normally when we are inside the body. The body works for us almost like a barrier for the sensation or the perception of the non-physical world that is around of us. But in spite of this barrier that causes a type of a funneling of our perceptions, we do experience and we do sense things. Not everyone, of course. I'm not talking about the whole population, but I'm talking about a significant percentage. The thing is that the way people interpret their experience, that's what is going to change from one group to another, from one culture to another. But the experience of the sensation of something beyond this physical world that would be somehow connected with us can happen in any condition, but most commonly it would happen when we are experiencing some sort of a loosening of our non-physical body that is aligned with the physical one, or looseness of our energies, meaning now also subtle energies. I'm not talking about any type of physical energy, but when we start expanding our energy field and we start detaching a little bit from the condition of alignment of our physical body, then we start having more perceptions of this subtle reality that somehow interacts with all of us all the time. Now, because, of course, if somebody would be starting to disconnect from their bodies and therefore starting some sort of out-of-body experience, if the individual is completely unconscious, what's going to happen? Well, pretty much the experience or the phenomena will happen. They will be outside the body at some point, but unconscious, not lucid. So really not participating, not knowing what's going on. But if there is some level of awareness present there, when the separation starts, the individual will be conscious of a reality that is beyond this purely physical one. How conscious? It depends a lot from person to person, but not only from person to person, but also from experience to experience. Because in some experiences, we kind of separate significantly from the physical body, or we have a higher level of looseness of our energy. Therefore, we will have more sensations, or we will pick more of this reality that is out there in this non-physical world. In other experiences, even though we are conscious, lucid, we start separating. For some reason, our connection with that subtle world, if I put it this way, or non-physical world, will be lesser. Therefore, our perceptions will also be lesser. I am doing a study with children to know how much children would perceive those things, or how many of these phenomena that we study as non-ordinary phenomena children would experience. So when I study that phenomena of out-of-body experience in connection with children and the sleep paralysis in connection with children, I see that children have more out-of-body experiences, but less connected often with sleep paralysis. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it happens. But when we go past our adolescence, we tend to have more of the sleep paralysis in connection with the out-of-body experience as compared when we were younger, as a child, for example. So then that is why most of the time the sleep paralysis is connected with the out-of-body experience, because that's when we are remaining lucid whilst separating from the body. And I'm not saying that is the only explanation for sleep paralysis, because evidently some people may really have a neurological problem that may produce, or a neurological condition that may produce this sensation. Or maybe there could be other psychological explanations even. But from what I have examined so far, and from all of the different accounts that I have collected, I think the great majority of the experience are related with some sort of sensitivity of the non-physical world. Okay, now, having explained that, let's see why people would feel that that is threatening, or they would sense bad presences around during that condition. So I'm just going to mention these, and then I'm going to open for all of your questions. I see people here from many different countries. Of course, some of you it's very early in the morning, for some others of you it's very late, and I know some people could not join because it's the middle of the night for them. I am in Madrid today. I am in Spain, so not so easy for those who are, for example, in the Pacific coast of United States. Super early for them, or if they are in Australia, it's not a convenient time either. So, but anyway, pretty much many of you could join, so I'm very thankful for that. So discussing about why there would be bad sensations in the moment for some experience, I'm not saying all, but in some experience we would have bad sensations or would sense a negative presence close by when we are in sleep paralysis. Well, because most people, they are not lucid and not aware of the non-physical reality, meaning, excuse me for a moment, meaning that they try to live their lives as normal people, so not thinking very much about what is there beyond the physical world. But in that moment, when they really start perceiving something that is out there while they are falling asleep, all of a sudden they may realize that there are some non-physical presence, maybe in their bedroom, or maybe some sort of non-physical presence that often gets close to them, but with intentions that are not the noblest. So it's not like helping us to evolve or helping us to get out of the body in a lucid way and learn. Many times our consciousnesses, non-physical people who are around, but they enjoy their invisibility, so they enjoy their connection with us and producing sometimes effects on our energies that we are not aware of, that may influence us during the day as well, causing, for example, thoughts or emotions that they appear out of the blue for no reason, even though they may be familiar with us, but they just have no reason of being there, and sometimes in very inconvenient times. So those consciousnesses, when we are lucid, detaching from the body, many times they, how would I say, get close to us in that moment. And we kind of get suddenly the notion that there is someone out there that wants something from us. So there are different techniques that this consciousness could use, like, for example, putting some sort of energy on us that we feel we are being touched in any part of the body, but like their touch, and just by getting very close or slightly close to us, like something penetrates us, and that stops us from moving. So it's almost as if this consciousness use our lack of knowledge of how to deal with energy to influence us. And it kind of gets us out of surprise, because we are not totally outside the body. If we were, would be easier, because if we are totally outside the body, we have better control of our energies, of our movements, of our senses. But because we are in between, we were just starting to detach, that situation in between causes that we do not have yet full control of our non-physical body, because we are not fully out. But we don't have full control of the physical body either, because we are not fully inside. So the more we feel emotionally confused, or the more we fight against this condition, it tends to take longer. But of course, when there is something negative there, like holding us in, like I just mentioned before, we kind of tend to feel we want to scream or jump out of there, or escaping anyway. But the more we do this effort, sometimes the more we feel entrapped. So what should we do? We should pretty much work with our energies, and I can answer later better if you want how to do it. But because it's subtle energies that are invading us and producing that bad sensation we are having, not producing the sensation of sleep paralysis, but producing the bad sensation as if someone else is holding us at that condition. Because that is being produced with energy, as I was saying, it is with energy, subtle energies, our bioenergies, chi, whatever name you want to give to it. That is the type of logics and tools we should use to prevent that. But most of the times, these consciousness, they want just to play with us or to get some of our energy, like to drain us. Sometimes they have an agenda, like to produce fear on us or to stop us from learning or doing something that we want to do, because they want us to keep us the way we are, that is convenient to them. So, not so serious most of the time and not so difficult for us to handle. But there are conditions, of course, in which one person could sense someone close by, but not a negative one. That is much more rare. Unfortunately, it shows to us that we are less in tune with the subtler, more positive, more ethical or cosmoethical consciousnesses, non-physical consciousness, as compared to those that are of lesser level. That is for the majority of people. So we little by little can learn to cleanse our energy field so that we have less possibility of this lower level consciousness getting close to us, and we leave more room in a way for those more advanced consciousness get close to us. But why am I saying that? Because there are many, many cases of people who are in the condition of sleep paralysis, and just because they sense someone close by, immediately they have a reaction as if they are being attacked or they are afraid. And there's no reason to be afraid, because not everyone we perceive is negative or is trying to cause us harm. In some cases, may even be someone trying to help us. That we should not have an immediate bad reaction just because we are sensing someone close by in the case of the sleep paralysis. But in some few cases, one person could also sense, for example, a condition of some sort of sexual attack during the sleep paralysis. I have also included that in my studies so that I see what is the percentage of that. And it seems that a significant percentage, the studies are not concluded, but I would guesstimate here, it's just an estimation, but I would say an educated guess based on what I have seen so far, maybe around 30% of the experiences, people feel somewhat connected with some sort of sexual attack or sexual assault in a way, but of course I'm talking about something non-physical. And why would that be? Because in many cases, those denser consciousnesses, and I say denser just to say less lucid or that are closer here to this physical world, this consciousness, they may be more interested in energies that are more related to the physical body than related to mental states or other emotional conditions. So they tend to try to vampirize or get close to us in terms of our sexual energies. So we feel pretty much a sexual intention there. Is that dangerous? We are going to wake up in the morning and maybe remembering of that or not, maybe lacking a little bit of our energies, but nothing that few exercises or just starting the day won't fix in most cases. But in some cases, it may leave a residual energy in our energy body. And this residual energy will cause the condition in which we are going to be, how can I say, remembering of that throughout the day, re-experiencing that sensation throughout the day. This is worse than the other conditions. Why worse? Because when we keep remembering that throughout the day, it means, number one, of course, there's the residual energy I mentioned about, but number two, it also means that we are still somewhat connected to those non-physical consciousnesses who created that condition during our sleep paralysis. Because, again, repeating just to make sure, the sleep paralysis is a natural phenomenon that is benign. I mean, it's positive. There's nothing wrong with it. What is wrong there is the fact that there are presences or energies that are not so good around, and then we are sensing those. So that's what we are discussing about here. So these can really produce this type of energetic or psychic attack. So in the case of the sexual assault, the more it happens, the easier it gets, or it becomes for those non-physical consciousness to produce a second time, a third time, a fourth time, because establish a relation that gets deeper and deeper connected in terms of our energies, of our chakras, all of our chakras. It's not because it's more producing a connection with the sexual energies, which are natural. All of us, we have it. Of course, it's part of our bodies. Just by being a physical person, we have some degree of it. But because they are attaching to our sexual energies, that they are only attached to the sexual chakra. No, it can be connection to all of our energies, or starting from any of our chakras, but it's still getting more connected with us from the point of view of the sexual energies. So I think this is very important to know, because some people, they are confused when they experience this during the sleep paralysis. They kind of connect that with something negative, which is, but they connect because of the fact they cannot move. But after this happened a few times and that connection is established, this can start happening in other moments, not necessarily during the sleep paralysis. When it happens in other moments, it means it already got so deep, so much ingrained in our energy, so close to us, that even when we are still completely inside the body, like just relaxed, for example, we may sense that. So that is a sign that the energies are getting too close. We wouldn't want that. Not with consciousness that are not of the highest level. And consciousnesses of the highest level, usually they do not have this type of strong connection that will produce effects that remains with us for so long, creating sensations and this sort of thing. So that is the condition that we have when we talk about the sleep paralysis in connection with psychic attack. So that's why it happens. So I would love to hear from you. I have here a bunch of Brazilian people talking em português. E, pessoal, se você escreve em português, vocês fazem uma confusão para as pessoas que só falam inglês. So, but anyway, I'm going to come here and check your questions. But so much parallel talk that it's hard for me to see the questions. So I'd love if this doesn't happen. So next time, I hope. Somebody here is asking if the higher number of occurrences could be because of the type of energy that those populations have. I don't think that would be the cause, because I think in terms of our energy and our energy body, the same for most people in any culture. My experience lecturing, but also doing interviews in different countries, is that a lot of people experience not only sleep paralysis, but out-of-body experience, clairvoyance, and many different things. They just attribute different reasons. So I think in terms of their energies, it's pretty much all the same for everyone, and it happens just naturally. But in terms of the differences from one culture to another, I think it's more like if the culture is informed that there is a phenomenon that is called sleep paralysis, or as I said in Japan, kanashibari, or in that place that I said that's Newfoundland, in which people have even a legend talking about that. I think in those cases, when people experience this, instead of saying, I had a nightmare, oh, I had a very bad dream, or something strange happened to me, immediately they will say the word, or they will connect with the description, with the concept of the phenomenon of sleep paralysis, then automatically we catalog in our brain as a separate, different phenomena, and we start paying a different attention to it. But even people, of course, who never heard of it, even people who can be super religious, even people who can be completely maybe restricted in a way, like repressed with all of this experience, they may and they will eventually, once in a while, experience sleep paralysis and this sort of psychic attack. It can happen because I have had conditions of people asking, but if you ask them, have you ever sensed energies? They will say, never. Have you ever had a psi experience? Never. Have you ever had sleep paralysis or out of body experience? Never. But then in the talk, when they start describing something once they had that was strange, the story comes. So we see that there is a lack of understanding of the phenomena. Very good. Thank you, little monster, for the question. It was a good question. Thank you very much. Let me see here if I have any other question. I see other questions, but not related to the topic. So I would not like to mix with this. So I'm going to discuss a little bit before we finish about what we can do in terms of energy for defense, maybe for us, when we sense this sort of attack, when it happens. And the number one thing, I believe, is to try to have a clear thinking. So not just get desperate, not just try to scream. Don't try to scream, it doesn't help. Don't try to move fast, it doesn't help. It has to be a mental action. So focus everything in your mind and not in your body. So don't fight physically, because pretty much that's why it's paralysis. You're not going to be able to move. When you move, then you already broke free from that. But to break free from that, number one, it's a fight with your mind. Sometimes even like some of those cartoons, or maybe a little bit like Doctor Strange, right? So you have to focus and concentrate on what you want to happen, because you have to create a condition in which your energies gets stronger than the energies of whoever is close by. And sometimes can even be another physical person. Sorry for the parenthesis. The one that is close can be a physical person that is projected outside the body at the time. It's much more rare, of course, but it can happen. But anyway, whatever is coming to us is energy. So besides your mental control, which has to be the first thing, the second is you will somehow try to sense if you are familiar with energy. If you are not familiar with your own energies and working and manipulating, having control of your energies, try to think like, I have something inside of me. I imagine, I said again, like Doctor Strange, whatever happens there, and you see the energies coming out of him, for example, in some parts of the movie. So think of that and say, okay, whatever is that ether or whatever, it's sort of a field that I have inside of me, I'm going to pump out through the same position where I'm feeling, position in my body, where I'm feeling those negative, nasty energies entering. So if I feel here in my stomach, or if I feel in my head, or if I feel in my heart, or in my back, whatever, the place where I'm feeling it, you try to focus on having your energies from inside of you, your own energies, going out, flowing towards that consciousness that is somehow sending you bad energies, okay? So that is what we are going to do in that moment. And this will not only stop the sleep paralysis, because the sleep paralysis will eventually stop. It will take a little longer or not, but we will come back. So no reason to be afraid. But that does not mean we are going to just accept that and do nothing about it. So we need to do something about it. So at that moment, when you manage to work in the energy with that way, not only you break free from this sleep paralysis, but you are also reducing the possibility of those same consciousness to come again, to get close to you again, or at least to make it more difficult until eventually it's impossible for those ones to come close. But you will also make sure that you have no residual energy in your own energy field, so that throughout the day, you are not going to be re-experiencing that and having that happen over and over again. Okay, so this is a tip that I can give you. But Eventually, once in a while, we do experience this. If for you it's too common, you need to see what is going on, energetically speaking, around of you, yourself, extra physical or non-physical companies, maybe places you go during the day, people you meet, and what sort of energies you end up getting from them, what sort of maybe consciousness or presence you would have in your bedroom that may be causing that, how they connect to you. So there are a number of procedures we can do, not only with ourselves to reinforce our own energy field, but also to identify if there are any of these elements in our bedroom or in our house and to cleanse that. Okay, but for each type of situation, there will be a slightly different procedure we are going to use to fix, because sometimes it's a presence that is confused there, sometimes a presence that is very conscious and know what they are doing, sometimes it's someone who has maybe a little situation with us of envy or something, and they keep sending us not good energies, and those energies end up affecting us at that time. So for each case, it's going to be slightly different technique, but all of them must start with us identifying how clean we are in terms of our field, our house, around of us, and being conscious, starting therefore afterwards to apply techniques. Okay, for those of you who have my book, you can check. There is a whole section that I describe about the Velo technique. And Velo means voluntary energetic longitudinal oscillation. It's just a big name for a simple technique moving energy inside the body. But if you read there, you see that there are some of the ways of doing Velo and also some of the applications of Velo that are exactly to cleanse our energy field and make us stronger to fight against this sort of thing, which can also happen during our waking state, right? Our waking life. But of course, today we are here to discuss about the sleep paralysis. I guess that's it, guys. So let me see if there is any last question. Someone here is asking about if Velo would reduce that. And I just said, right? Yes, that will reduce definitely, Enrique. It reduces because we cleanse our energy field. So it's harder for this consciousness to get close to us. So it was a good question and timely one. Is it normal during the sleep paralysis that we see things that we usually wouldn't see normally when we are totally awake? Yes, because there can be also hypnagogic images, like images that are generated by our brain, but there can also be images that we have in our brain, or we can have thoughts that are because of the connection with these subtle energies or subtle consciousness that are close by, and their thoughts start somehow invading and influencing ours. So it's a sort of telepathy. It's very common to happen. It's more common to happen, this telepathic perception during this sleep paralysis, than some sort of psychic attack, as we were describing. The psychic attack is an extreme, but until get there, we can hear, we can sense presences only, we can see things, because those are degrees of our perceptions of this non-physical world and non-physical presence that can there. I'm not saying they are there in all cases. It's not for us to be afraid, but on the other hand, if there is a reality that is there, the fact that we don't know this reality do not make us less vulnerable. It's like if sun is dangerous now for our skin, if somebody is not informed about that, won't make them less susceptible of having a skin problem because of too much sun. It's the same. So we'd better be informed and know what to do about it. That's what I think. Let me see here if I have another question. How to protect yourself from the interaction with this consciousness. I already described, like Isabella, thank you. I just explained that. Thank you for the question. And I have a question here about Velo that we have already addressed. Isabella is asking if beside Velo, we should exteriorize energies, like sending out, transmitting energies. Yes, we should. And then that's why I said we should transmit exactly to the same position that we feel, position in our body that we feel the energies entering, because that will make sure we reach the consciousness that is somehow affecting us. But in terms of cleansing our environment, certainly some sort of sending out of our energies will be necessary to fix or replace some of the not good energies that are there. I can make another talk or a video about that. If you guys want, please leave in the comments down below what sort of questions you have about that. What are your suggestions for future talks or videos that I could do that would be interesting and important to you, okay? Let me see, somebody here is asking about a fear. I would not be afraid of a contact of a negative entity of the other side. I would be happy if I could experience anything related to non-physical world. Very good, Francisco. I want to see you have that and keep that still in mind. But I certainly appreciate that, because of course, if somebody's afraid, even when it never happened to them, then of course that is going to block anything good, because we will somehow prevent the condition those that would favor us being able to live the body consciously and sense this non-physical reality, which is wonderful. Unfortunately, some people only see the hard side of it or the negative side of it. But once we cleanse this first layer of maybe not so balanced energy that we may have around, we have wonderful energies, super worthwhile. So, okay, so I think that's it. I see other questions, but about things that I have already explained. So certainly they came throughout our talk here. I appreciate. So Isabella here is also saying that she finds that doing velo helps, but as soon as I stop, the attack may be reinstalled. That is true. That is true, because it means the consciousness is still there. So that's why velo we would do like during the day, like a preventive thing to, or preventative. So that would not happen. It would reinforce our field. But when we are already under the attack, velo will protect us in that moment that we are doing velo. In some cases, it can be so well done that the extra physical or non-physical consciousness completely detach. But in other cases, they remain there. So we stop velo, we'll sense it again. It can happen. And that's when we need to resort to other techniques. But that's why, in this case, velo is best done throughout the day or before we go to bed, so that we reinforce our field and we have less chance of this consciousness coming close. Once they are close, that's why I said, first thing is mental fight in a way. I'm not saying a negative way, but you have to fight mentally. You have to keep your mind lucid and know what you want to do, number one. And number two, then sending out or exteriorizing energies. That is very good. Thank you very much, guys. So I do not want to make very long video here. It's very hard for people to follow later, but I am so glad that you could join and hope this was useful to you. So thank you so much for being with us. Goodbye and see you next time. Ciao.